Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher and we're looking at the Monk. I expected the Monk to be one of the least changed specs in Legion. What we have is the most changed class in Legion. Absolutely, it's the most changed class I've looked at so far. They're not all released just yet, but it's the most changed overall. I mean, we've had some individual specs that have undergone some kind of major changes, but the Monk has just had it all over the place. They're like, everything's changing. We're switching this bad boy up. Okay then, so that means we've got quite a lot to discuss here, as you can probably imagine. So without further ado, let us caveat as first, is that this is the very basic foundation of the specs, okay? The super basic foundation. A lot of the depth and the complexity is to come from the talents and the artifact system, and I will release those as soon as we have them. They don't exist yet. So as you can imagine, so early in the development cycle, this stuff is all subject to change. So if you have something to say, make sure you let Blizzard know about it. They're being quite active on the old Twitter machine and looking at websites and stuff. So please, get your thoughts out there, okay? Get your thoughts out there. So, with the Monkey Monk, let's start with our tongue and the Brewmaster. The Brewmaster is a quirky character. Though dangerous when underestimated, Brewmasters may seem to struggle with balance as they chug their concoctions in the middle of a fight. But this unpredictable behaviour is far from foolhardiness. Most opponents barely have time to process the erratic nature of the Brewmaster's fighting tactics before they find themselves laid low. Possibly the result of a keg smash to the head. When an opponent actually manages to land an attack, it is often unclear how much the Brewmaster feels it, if at all. It's a strange blurb, as it seems to mention, like, almost 75% of that commentary is about DPS, and that's a really weird approach. In fact, it says very little about the tank, whether it's just basically says, they might be too drunk to notice whether or not you hit them. Ha ha ha, isn't that funny? Well, it is a quirky class and character. We said this about the artifact weapons as well. They are quirky. They are designed to have a little bit of a fun aspect to them. So, yeah, I'm kind of okay with it, although I do feel it's one of the weaker new class spec descriptions we have gotten. So, the Brewmaster has undergone several changes, and I imagine, in fact, I could probably say this about all three specs, is there are people who are either going to really like the changes or really hate them, because they're definitely altering what the traditional, although it's only been a couple of expansions, the traditional monk model has been. So what you've got used to with your monk is going away for the most part, and people are probably going to be pissed about that. Even if the new changes kind of look exciting, it's not what they've got used to as a monk. So I understand that where the rage might come from, and you might find my opinion differs. Okay, so they've got rid of Chi. Chi is gone, and they have probably, I mean, it doesn't say specifically, but their wording is that they were focused far too much on things like absorb shields, and we don't like that. So it looks like Guard's gone as well. I'm really okay with that. I am really okay with that. Guard is just such a silly spell with the way it worked. Just super powerful absorbs that were just being used for fun. So powerful, in fact, they were just being compared for how high they could get. And they also created these peaks and troughs of where you were taking just no damage for quite a long period of time in some cases. And it's nullified so many mechanics. It had problems. It did have problems compared to how the other tanks were dealing with things. And I'm kind of okay with Guard going away. Now, how have they replaced it? Lots of emphasis on brews, okay? Lots more emphasis on brews and controlling your stagger. Again, I like this. This is taking more of a thoughtful approach. Now, in doing so, they have dragged away a lot of things. There's no mention of shuffle really anymore. They've mixed a lot of stuff and merged it into things that are going to happen passively now. So let's get into it then. So you get a new brew called Iron Skin Brew. It's 3 charges with a 20-second recharge, okay? So 3 a minute. And it increases your stagger by 60%. That's very crucial for when you're about to get hit in the face by something crazy. An increase of stagger by 60%. And this is where I will mention that stagger now works actively on magic. It's 50% as effective as it is on physical, but it now happens all the time, okay? So you're going to be using Iron Skin Brew as kind of like a shield block, shield right, shield righteous, all that kind of stuff. This big, like, this is your defense that you're putting up against the big smashy hits. Okay, you're going to be using Iron Skin Brew in those scenarios by increasing your ability to stagger. Now, it shares a cooldown with Purifying Brew. That's right, your Purifying Brew is no longer a spammable ability. Okay, it's exactly the same as Iron Skin Brew. You get 3 charges with a 20-second recharge. You can either use one of those charges to Iron Skin Brew and allow you to stagger more of the incoming damage that's happening, or you can use one of those charges to purify away the damage. So if you get some sort of, let's say you run into a scenario where you have red stagger, for instance, you're going to make a decision there. Is something about to happen where I need to have a big high super stagger and need to buff it with Iron Skin Brew? Or should I purify away this red because I'm going into a moment of serenity? Or do I want to do both and use 2 charges and only be left with 1 charge for the next 20 seconds? These are the choices you're now going to make as a monk. I like them. I do like it. I think it's okay. It's much slower though. Very much the case that it is much, much slower. We'll get to that again. I'm going to go through the defensive stuff first. So, Gift of the Ox, Healing Spheres, 25% of max HP is a hell of a lot. They still appear to the side of you. I fucking hate that. I really hate that because as a monk, as a tank I should say, I'm all about position all the time. And if I don't want to be shimmying the mobs, and we've seen that some of the hitboxes recently in the game are just nightmarishly bad. If we look at Tyrant Velhari, a boss that is designed for the tanks to work really hard to keep that thing still, and it just dives all over the room. And you're like, yeah, why are you making me move now by putting one of my major mitigation tools are forcing me to shimmy left and right and do this dance? I really dislike that. They will have a greater chance at spawning the lower your HP is. So it is what it is. That's how it's going to work. And your mastery now is interesting, okay? Elusive Brawler is what they're calling it. Every time you were hit by a melee attack, so this is not based on just taking damage, it's a melee attack, you gain 20% dodge, okay? 20% dodge. This stacks, okay? It stacks up. So if you... But it disappears when you actually dodge. I have no idea how this is really going to balance out in the future. I really don't. Because it seems like you are very likely to run into streaks where it's building up, where you're just not dodging everything and staggering things, which is kind of okay, because monks naturally avoid spiky damage, but you could definitely have like 5 hits, right? Or 4 hits, I should say, until the next one is dodged or whatever. And that's just going to be nightmarish to have that happen all the time, because it's just nasty that you can get really good streaks. You can go for ages now, and dodge is never really a nice mechanic for tanks. Avoidance has always caused problems. It always has caused problems. It has. Avoidance has always caused problems. So it's nice that the monks always stagger everything they get hit by, right? That's their basic fundamental ability as a tank, and that's staying. That's cool. This dodge thing is really ropey, because it might dodge something shit. Let's take a quick example. If you're fighting a boss and an ad, and the ad hits really fast, okay, but quite weak, you can, like, take all the big hits of the boss, and then the dodge will go on the minor hit of the quick-hitting small ad. And we run into these scenarios quite regularly, where we're tanking multiple things, especially in boss fights, and you're focused on the one that does the most damage, and it's just going to build up this dodge chance, which might not happen regularly. Okay, it might be like 4 or 5 hits, and then you dodge, but you dodge something not worthwhile, and then you go back to taking the big hits again. There's all kinds of chances for this to just be shitty. Just be shitty. Or it could work really, really well, right? It's unlikely at 20%, but you could just go, well, there's my dodge, dodge, get the buff again, dodge, get the buff again, dodge, get the buff again. All this kind of stuff going on. So I particularly dislike this, especially in comparison to Elusive Brew. And you might be wondering where Elusive Brew is. Well, you can see the talent if you're looking at the screen. It's Elusive Dance. It's now a talent, essentially, which is Purifying Brew. So, Purifying Brew, not Iron Skin Brew. Okay, so you will choose this based on the fight. Will you be purifying more in this fight, or will you be iron skinning more? That's the question. Purifying Brew also grants 15% dodge for 6 seconds based on the amount of stagger you cleared. Okay, so a nice little mechanic there where you're basing it on early Purifying Brew, which is unlikely to happen at all now. You're likely to have stagger going for much longer periods of time. It's not going to be like anything in Warlords of Draenor, where we were generally saying, look, even green stagger can be dangerous now, and you need to be purifying it. Now you're going to be like, I could go into yellow or red, or should I purify, or what am I going to do here? All these questions are going to come up in Legion. A very, very, very different playstyle. So you might be thinking to yourself, those 20-second recharges are bullshit, Preacher. They're absolute bullshit, and it sounds super slow. Well, let's look into the next series of spells. Instead of gameplay, I thought I'd split this into the defensive and aggressive. So your offensive spells now work like this. So Keg Smash does its usual stuff, plus reduces the brew cooldowns by 4 seconds every time you Keg Smash. So it still costs 40 energy, still an 8-second cooldown, still obviously your top priority because of this 4-second reduction. On top of that, Tiger Palm at 25 energy reduces it by 1 second. Okay? Blackout Kick is gone, replaced by Blackout Strike, and they use the word thwack in its description. Okay. You thwack the enemy with your weapon. doing damage, and it now shares a cooldown with Breath of Fire. They've basically just fixed, as far as I could tell, they just fixed this problem for prop paladins, where they had Hammer of the Righteous and Crusader Strike, which shared a cooldown, and one was AoE and one was single target. And then they've reintroduced that after fixing it for the paladins, as it was a clunky mechanic, into the monk. I don't understand why. So you can get Blackout Strike, Weapon Attack, instant 3-second cooldown, or you can Breath of Fire. You can do one or the other, depending on if you're AoEing or single targeting. This is so confusing. I understand where they're coming from with the Keg Smash and Tiger Palm. You should be mixing those in, taking advantage of your energy in those cases, and mixing in these Blackout Strikes, because they're free. They're done, it's a 3-second cooldown. They're free. They're not going to cost you any chi or anything or energy. So you're going to be using these in between. This is basically, it's not spammable with a 3-second cooldown, but you're going to be weaving it in between attacks, which is something the Windwalker's going to be doing. And we'll get to that shortly. All together, we need to play this. It certainly feels like it's going to be extremely slow, but we have talents and stuff to come. I like the mitigation side of it. I really like the mitigation side of it. The actual offensive stuff, I dislike. And I would much favour any of the other tanks right now over the monk in terms of the offensive playstyle, in terms of generating your resources in order to mitigate. It's a very, very important balance to strike. And the monk now, or at least the Brewmaster, its basic foundation, is very antiquated. They've gone from being one of the most advanced styles of play to a style of play that we've been retrofitting for other classes for quite a while. So we'll have to see how this plays out. Will you be doing... I mean, it's 40 energy and 25 energy. It's quite a lot to try and get some decent cooldowns. And I've no doubt talents and especially the artifact weapon will augment these cooldowns and probably make it much more fast-paced. So I'll reserve judgment up until that point, is what I'll say. With that said, let us move on to the Mistweavers. Mistweavers are unique amongst those who heal. The energies they channel are mysterious, oftentimes misunderstood by commoners, who rarely travel beyond the borders of their homelands. As some form of folk medicine, but those who weave the mists wield the power of life's essence, using a mixture of preventative and restorative spells to mend their allies' wounds. The inner tranquility that guides Mistweavers allows them to sustain their healing for long periods of time, and gives them the strength to care for multiple injured allies. The Mistweaver has changed a lot. A hell of a lot. And I'm going to come out and say it, for the better. The Mistweaver for me was super boring in Warlords of Draenor. Now, I know that's an entirely subjective thing, and a lot of Mistweavers out there really liked it. But ultimately, you were generating chi to spend it on spells that weren't interesting. Like, Uplift wasn't interesting, Enveloping Mist wasn't interesting. And often running into scenarios where you were generating so much chi, because that was the best way of playing and the best way of returning mana to yourself, that you were actually spamming abilities that were essentially useless in some scenarios. That was happening very, very regularly across the board. They're going away from that. They're dropping out one of the biggest nightmares Mistweavers always face, which is the RNG. Especially based on Renewing Mist. The RNG there could just fuck you. Big damage, didn't hit anybody who had Renewing Mists on, despite you having like 10 Renewing Mists going, and you're uplifting, and it was just waste of time. It wasn't healing anybody. It wasn't doing a goddamn thing. And Enveloping Mist, because you had excess, and you're trying to get rid of it, because your Expel Harm was about to come off cooldown, you had Renewing Mists on charges, you were generating chi for days. All these kind of things were just clunky in my opinion, although I get that a lot of Mistweavers like it. So for me personally, this Mistweaver change is fucking awesome. I mean, I'm not even going to joke it. I think it's fucking awesome. There's one issue I have with it, so let's get into it. You have a new mastery called Gusts of Mist, okay? When you single target heal somebody, you will start channeling a minor healing to them. The Soothing Mist, passive. So Effuse, which is a spell we'll talk about soon, Enveloping Mist, and another new spell called Vivify, you start channeling Soothing Mist into someone. So when you're healing, you actually have the point where you'll Enveloping Mist somebody, or use Effuse, which, again, I'll talk about Enveloping Mist. You guys know what that is. Enveloping Mist somebody, you'll start channeling Soothing Mist into them until you do something else. Until you single target heal somebody else. You can quite literally take your hands off the keyboard at that point, because your character will continue to heal them, okay? Soothing Mist will just channel into them until you decide to do something else. And apparently, it doesn't cost you any mana. Alright, it heals a minor amount, so it's not a big heal, for every 0.5 seconds until you take another action, okay? Until you do something else. So it just literally does it for you. One big issue with this, it's gonna look like you're pissing on people. If it comes out of your chest, I imagine it'll keep the same Soothing Mist animation, but it does feel on the description that you just heal somebody and then you piss all over them for an extended period of time until you should stop, okay? So what are these spells then? You'll gain a Fuse, which is a fast, small heal. So this is essentially just poking a heal at somebody, and then you'll start channeling Soothing Mist into somebody. So you can redirect these minor heals. So it's a fast, small heal. It's not a big heal. It's just picking and choosing where your Soothing Mist will go, essentially. It's like a target more than anything. You'll also know that you don't no longer cast Soothing Mist. So you don't have that mechanic like you have now where you Soothing Mist someone to make your cast instant or anything like that. It's now going to a more normal style of play. So like a Fuse is a 1.5 second cast. Enveloping Mist, obviously there's no chi involved anymore, is a 2 second cast. Okay, it does the usual, but it gives them a healing buff of 30%. So nice for single target is to keep that buff up. Okay? Really nice, really nice. 30% healing for the Soothing Mist, so it's probably not as minor as it appears to be if Enveloping Mist on somebody, because it's reasonably expensive at 6% mana. Renewing Mist has changed as well. It's a 20-second hot. When you cast it on somebody, okay, it heals for a lot now. But if it starts overhealing, instead of what it does now, which it ticks and then it jumps and it ticks and then it jumps and then you have 3 going, it looks like you have 1 going with Renewing Mist. It has a 6-second cooldown, so you probably will get several going. Sorry, I'm just being an idiot there. 6-second cooldown, it's a 20-second hot, so it lasts way longer. You can guess 3. When you cast it, once it starts overhealing, it will instantly jump to somebody else who needs healing. That's how it's going to work now. Instead of it ticking and then jumping, once it reaches a point where that person is getting overhealing, it will then go and travel to someone else. Now, what it won't do from this description is leave a Renewing Mist behind. So your one cast of Renewing Mist will always be just one Renewing Mist, and it will seek out people who need healing, okay, for 20 seconds. It also, right, this is the most important thing, it also doesn't tie to any other spells. Okay, it's just a hot that you're firing out. So you'll probably keep the 3 rolling, and there'll be some buffs, like maybe the T's are still in existence somewhere, so you can do something with this. I like this. I really like this, because sometimes you just want to throw that Renewing Mist on one guy. And what we had in WOP was we were throwing Renewing Mist for no other reason than to get Renewing Mist spread across the raid, which makes it boring. It makes it really boring because you're just throwing out a lot of them, which is what we were doing in Legion, in WOD and MOP. Throwing out as many as possible with the hope of blanketing as many people as possible, hoping that those were the guys that would take damage so that our uplift would do something. So, right, that was a terrible idea. That was always really bad, and that was one of the big complaints of Mistweavers. Now you'll throw a Renewing Mist on somebody who needs it, and if it stops being effective, it will go and find someone else to heal. Now, that could be really annoying on tanks. I'm not going to deny that. It could be really annoying on tanks is that you're Renewing Misting them. Either the tanks will always be the first target of Renewing Mist, but it seems unless you can glyph it or something, you can't keep a Renewing Mist on a tank. Because tanks always clip to 100% health all the time and then drop and drip. So as your Renewing Mist ticks, if those guys are 100% health, your Renewing Mist is going to leave the tank, although it still has plenty of opportunity to be effective there. Do you see what I'm saying? So I want to see how that plays out, because that could be really annoying if it's like Renewing Mist, I keep throwing it at the tank, and it instantly fucks off to somebody who really doesn't need this healing. And then I recast it, and it does it again, recast it, and do it again. It's like I'm throwing it at a reflective wall, and it's just bouncing back. It also has a 4% chance to proc a 50% buff on your next Vivify. What is Vivify? Vivify is a single target heal. So you cast it at somebody, but it's not a binding heal, essentially. It's almost like a circle of healing, but for 3 people is what it is. So you target somebody, and it'll also heal 2 others through smart healing. So it'll look for people who are injured for the same amount. So it'll heal 3 people, okay? So it's kind of cool. For a 5% mana, 1.5 second cast, nice, interesting spell. I like the way we're expanding the toolkit here. We have single target heals, we have AoE heals, then we have another AoE heal, which is Essence Font, 8% mana. This is expensive. Channeled. It's like Penance, but for 6 people, okay? It unleashes a rapid twirl of healing bolts at up to 6 allies within 25 yards every second for 3 seconds. Each bolt heals for a moderate amount, plus it applies a hot for the next 8 seconds. So very expensive AoE heal, but also probably looks really cool. I like the idea of it, and it's good in that emergency we have to heal everyone's situation, because obviously Uplift is gone. No, Uplift no longer exists. We can't do that anymore. Instead, they've given you multiple different ways of AoE healing. Okay, Essence Font doesn't have a cooldown, neither does Vivify, depending on how many people have taken damage. So if it's the entire raid, Essence Font becomes more powerful, right? Similar to how Wild Growth works and Light of Dawn works, okay? You have to judge who's going to get healed by this. If it's not like 4 or 5 people, okay, you probably want to use Vivify instead. It's cheaper, makes more sense. You see what I'm saying? Very, very cool idea. And this is why I like it. Right tool for the right job is always the way healers should go for me. Every single time. The talent they've shown is Mistwalk. 2 charges. 20-second recharge. Dash to an ally and heal them. Fuck yeah, baby. Mistweavers are all about mobility, and there was nothing greater than when we were shooting through people and giving them mad amounts of healing. It doesn't cost mana. It's something I could do for a bit of fun, waiting for something to come back off cooldown. Everything's pretty hunky-dory. RM AoE healing. I just dropped a big fucking essence font. I'm now going to shoot through people, heal them for a large amount, drop another Vivify or an essence font, and then be able to do that. I wish it AoE healed. Right? Like the old Chi Torpedo. I wish it AoE healed, but Mistwalk will do for me to add to that thematic. I mean, it's got a 40-yard range. Zoom, zoom, baby. Fucking zoom, zoom. It's got a 40-yard range. That'll do nicely. Let's move on then to our last one. The Windwalker, which has also had hugely dramatic changes. Excuse me. I'm so poorly. Oh, God. Okay, the Windwalker. I've got to start off with what the new mastery is. Okay, so let's read the description of what they're saying. Among monks, none have mastered the martial arts as the Windwalkers have, and few across Azeroth can fight with their grace. Windwalkers possess unparalleled physical finesse, and are capable of overwhelming their enemies with a dizzying flurry of punches and kicks. Their skill comes primarily from a lifetime of intense training and discipline, but the power they exhibit is shrouded in more mysticism than meets the untrained eye. The combination of their peak physical conditioning, state of inner calm, and leveraging of mystical chi makes Windwalker monks a true force to be reckoned with. There's your chi, Transformers. Transformers! Windwalkers in disguise! Chi is in for the Windwalkers. It's sticking around. Lots of changes here. Some of them you are really not going to like if you're a decent player. I'm sorry, you won't. Let's get into it. The new mastery then is Combo Strikes. Combo Strikes. A 25% damage buff. Holy shit. For not using the same ability twice in a row. So, if you use... Well, we'll go through the buttons, I suppose. Is the way we're going to do this. So you just be aware of everything we're talking about here. There's a 25% damage buff for not using the same spell twice in a row. Tiger Palm now costs 50 energy. Get fucked, energy bar. 50 energy. And it generates 2 chi and does nothing else. Nothing else. It has an 8% chance, 8% to make your next blackout kit cost no chi. Okay, so that's what it does. There's no more damage buffs coming from weird sources. Something to bear in mind there. I should have mentioned it during the Brewmaster. But yeah, there's no like Tiger Power. That's gone. The Rising Sun Kick has also been changed. There's none of that. So 50 energy, 2 chi. Blackout Kick still exists. Can be free with Tiger Palm. Costs 1 chi. Does fuck all else. Right? Does fuck all else. Rising Sun Kick, 2 chi. 8-second cooldown. No longer has an 8 damage taken debuff. That's gone. Out of there. Forget about it. Fists of Fury, massive damage, 3 chi, 20-second cooldown. You can now move by default, so where the stun has gone, I don't know. We'll be able to add the stun back in some way? I don't know. Spinning Crane Kick is still around, but now costs chi instead of energy. It's 1 chi, it's channeled. And the big change for me, before we get into the rotational side of this, is Storm, Earth, and Fire. Storm, Earth, and Fire will now just be a toggled ability where your spirits, your Ellies, or whatever you want to call them, will fuck off and do their own thing. They'll attack, they'll find something to attack and they'll start kicking it. Why? Do you know what the great thing about Storm, Earth, and Fire was? That it didn't work that way. I can't be the only one. I can't be. I refuse to check community feedback before I make these guides. I want them to be my own opinion so I can be surprised if I'm wrong. I enjoy that part of it and I enjoy reading your discussions. The best thing about Storm, Earth, and Fire is that I could choose where the spirits were going. Because you know what happens when there's a big ad fight? There's lots of ads that aren't a priority. And they're just the worst place for me to stick my damage. And you know what I like to do? Tell the game where I want my damage to go. I like that. I like going, oh, I have 7 mobs here. Let's take Bracken Spore. I want my spirits to be on the boss. And I want it to be on the big golem. Right? I want a spirit on each of those. That'll do for now. Oh, the big pea shooters spawn, but they are in a really awkward position. I'm going to take it off the golem, and I'm going to stick each of my spirits on the 2 pea shooters that are out of range of everyone else, because I'm a monk, and I'm fucking awesome, and I can do that. And I can help the raid out in that manner. And then when one of those dies, I'll stick my spirit back on there. I'm not going to stick it on all sorts of other shit that's spawning. Right? I want to do that. If there's a boss fight that has like 3 boss fights, let's take Siege of Orgrimmar, where there was ads and waves and little fucking little creepy crawly ads and all that kind of stuff. I don't want my Storm Earth and Fire leaving a potential boss target, which will kill the fight, and go fuck around with some little crawly ads that are just to be AoE'd down in 10 seconds. I absolutely do not ever want you to do that. I don't ever want you to do that, game. So... was it difficult? I have to ask the question. Let me know down below. Did you feel that Storm Earth and Fire was clunky? I mean, you had to track it properly, but who doesn't do that with most abilities in the game these days? I don't know. So that's a sadness there. You get a talent called Hit Combo, which is basically playing your... This talent basically says to me, play the Windwalker as we intend you to play it, and we'll give you another 10% damage buff on top of the 25%, right? So using combo strikes, making use of this 25% damage buff, which, you know, who would do that? Oh, now I will, because of this talent. It gives the stacking damage buff up to 10%, so 1% every time you do an ability. Okay. This is how it's going to play. It seems pretty obvious on the front of it, but I think we need to just basically look at it as I think it will play, and you guys can correct me if you've got some different ideas. Like, from the pull, this is how I would think this would work, is you would Tiger Palm ×2. Now, that second Tiger Palm is not going to get the benefit of combo strikes, but you'll start off with 4 chi, right? And which is important because we're going to go into Fist of Fury. This is also assuming there's no things like fucking Chi Brew and all that kind of stuff. Let's take it from a very basic idea before you throw in talents and stuff, because we don't know what they are yet. Alright, so this is the general idea I'm looking at. It would be something like Tiger Palm ×2. We lose 1 Tiger Palm from combo strikes, but then we go into a Fist of Fury, which will have the combo strikes buff. And because there's no damage buffs to be gained from Rising Sun Kick or Tiger Palm, then Fist of Fury is now our absolute top priority. Even in the pull, right? We don't want a Rising Sun Kick first because we don't get any benefit from that. So Fist of Fury straight in. Now, during that channel, hopefully we've regenerated enough energy to use another Tiger Palm. So keep the combo strike. This is all just to keep combo strikes going, which should leave us with 3 chi. 3 chi. So then Rising Sun Kick, which is our next priority. Okay. Then we're going to Tiger Palm again to keep the combo going, because the Rising Sun Kick has brought us down to 1 chi. So Tiger Palm back to 3 chi again. Blackout Kick. Tiger Palm again, back to 3 chi. Oh, to 2 chi now, I should say. Now on 2 chi. With the next Tiger Palm will then take us to 4 chi. So we'll Rising Sun Kick, which will take us back down to 2 chi. And then we'll Tiger Palm again, taking us to 4 chi, where Fist of Fury should be back off cooldown. And it seems... And obviously we'll have things like... Probably something like Chi Wave. There'll be things to do in between. But it seems to be a very static style of play along that idea. Okay? Now, what I will point out here is that while that seems very static... The Mastery of Combo Strikes is your abilities. So anything else we add in from talent, so if there's Chi Wave, which costs nothing, alright, or anything like that, because I imagine a lot of you are reading that and thinking, oh my god, we're going to be waiting for energy forever. It's going to be so slow. There's got to be some abilities which are free, and as the Mastery Combo Strikes deals with abilities, there's entirely the possibility of doing abilities in between that also keep the combo strikes buff going. So we could go something like Tiger Palm ×2, Fists of Fury, Chi Wave, Tiger Palm, and so on and so forth in order to fill in these obvious gaps that occur. And plus we'll hopefully have things like Energizing Brew still. Fingers crossed, I don't know. I don't want the monk to go any slower than it did in WoD. No! No! Bad Blizzard! Bad Blizzard, don't do that. And I don't think they're going to do that. I think ultimately there's going to be a lot of stuff to add into this. Although the talent preview they gave us wasn't too great. So my big fear is that it'll be super slow. That is my big fear. But of course, there's so much extra to come into it that I don't think that will be the case. But that's my initial impressions and feedback. So I'd love to see yours as well. Alright guys, a long video, but lots to talk about. Let me see what you got to say. Bye-bye guys.